Hello, I'm Silent Death, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Science Harder Campaign. We are back after a bit of a hiatus from working on the floor tutorial, which was quite educational. I learned a great deal doing that, spending a lot of time reading the Wikipedia and various such things. You can see that the Duna invasion fleet that we launched last time is well on its way to Duna. They've all left Kerbin's sphere of influence and are now hurtling themselves through interplanetary space. However, launching all of those craft really hurt our wallet a great deal. We are only at 1.45 million Kerbal bucks. So naturally, we're going to spend some more money by upgrading the astronaut complex to level 3. Because, as I mentioned last time, it is time to recruit some more Kerbals. Our first two new Kerbals are Toys B. Kerman and Grumph B. Kerman. Toys wanted to be an engineer, and he is. Grumph wanted to be a pilot, and he is. The middle initial just happened to work out to get in their profession that they wanted. So we just need someone to be a scientist, and then we'll have a complete B team. Again, if you wish to be named, just leave a comment with what you want your character to be named, and any profession if you have a preference. So those two are probably going to be flying out today, being that they're available and everything. As I've been threatening to, I also deleted most of the wings from both the B9 and stock. Left a few of the winglets, since I sometimes use those on rockets for stability. But that deleted this entire node here, and some other stuff. Most of these have far fewer parts, and our aerodynamic screen is much less cluttered. And with the extra memory that we saved from that, we installed USI colonization MKS OKS. I have no idea which initials it goes by, but it's one of those things, or all three of those things, or something. And that is one tech past this. They're each 300. 300 for the orbital ones and 300 for the science ones. So we need 450 science to unlock those. I was hoping to have those unlocked sooner, but not really anything I can do about that. If we don't have it, we don't have it. Our primary goal is going to be getting this next experimental science with the gravioli detector. Cheese stuffed gravioli. Yummy. The gravioli detector will be the last science thing we need. So we need to save up a great deal of money to upgrade the Research and Development Center. It's a little bit over 6 million, or a lot over 6 million. I think it's like 6.6 million or something like that. One of the downsides of installing the USI colonization system is these two buttons here. Logistics Master and Untitled, or okay, this is some kind of inventory management thing. I hate it when mods add things to the stock toolbar that you are not going to be using at least 90% of the time. And I see myself very rarely using either of these screens. It annoys me to no end when people do that, because it just clutters up my screen. And you see people with Let's Plays and they have this toolbar out here because mods keep adding just useless buttons. Another culprit for that is a deadly reentry. How often am I going to be changing the settings that you need to put this little button every single part of the game? Really hate it. Really hate it. But I'm not just complaining for no reason. The mods are open source, so if I want to change it, I can. And I have. No more deadly reentry button, and no more annoying colonization buttons, if I want the colonization buttons. They're down here, on the off chance that I may at some point in the future need them. And the deadly reentry thing is on this screen. And only on this screen. It does not show up on any other screens. Along with the other settings like far and real shoots, which is exactly how it should be. And that required changing all of one word. Exactly one word. That is the difference between annoying the hell out of me and being how it should be. But enough griping, let's go to space. This vessel is the base race. It is built kind of similar to parts of the dynamic Duna. We are going to be focusing on building or doing station contracts. Probably because they are the best, fastest way to make money with our current level of technology. So our plan for this mission, the new ContractsPlus window allows us to create plans. So I've created a plan for all the contracts we're doing this mission. We are going to transmit science from space around Kerbal, from space around the moon. We are going to build a new orbital station around Kerbal that has an antenna, power, and a docking port, 8 kerbals, and a research lab. Then a orbital station around the moon that has power, docking port, antenna, 8 kerbals, and a research lab. Finally, we will be landing an outpost on the surface of Minmus that has a research lab, a viewing cupola, power, antenna, docking port. Supports at least 20 kerbals, which is part of the reason, or well, the reason, that this is such a large vessel. And we are also going to try to test the Turtle Aerospike engine. As I don't really like it. And it'll give us some money. It's not something that I'm going to be using that much, because I don't like it very much. Right, so to space, or something. Just a little bit of thrust to circularize our orbit, or get us into orbit, I guess. Would be more accurate. And then wait for 10 seconds. And there's one contractor done. How much money do we make from that? Please, thank you. 58,000, not a whole lot, but it works. So that's one down, and then we can go ahead and do the science from space. So let's take a crew report. Let's deploy the antenna. And we're going to target the moon. Because that will be the easiest way for us to transmit things. Doesn't make sense, but that's how it works. There we are, another little bit of money. 18.99 thousand. deactivate that. Stop draining our batteries. Thank you. Now then, it's off to the moon. We don't have as much Delta V as I would like. Nowhere near as much as I would like. And we're carrying these along, so our Delta V is actually lower than it's reporting right there. Going to be a little bit closer than I had hoped, but we'll have to see how this works. We do need to get down to at least 24.4 kilometer orbit of the moon. So let's try that. We are putting ourselves into orbit of the moon. We made it there okay. Going to be a little bit low on Delta V. A little bit. Just want to barely get us into orbit. Then we can run the test on this, which solves that one. That gave us $156,000. That's pretty good. And now then we can discard this extra weight. Goodbye. And right, we also need to do a crew report for the science from space around the moon. So we'll target you at Kerbal. Hopefully you have a line of sight. 8. There we go. And transmit. There we go. And there's more science. So that was 36K. And we've also gotten the station contract for 111,000. So we've made enough money to have a profit on this one for this mission. Thankfully. Even if we don't make it to Minimus, but hopefully we will. The transfer window planner says it's like 250-ish Delta V to get from the moon to Minimus. And we still have plenty to land, in fact. So let's see how we're going to do that. I need to figure out what the best orbit to go from the moon to Minimus is, but hopefully it's not too bad. And more fast forwarding. Toys and Gruff are in for a bit of a scenic trip around. I made a slight error. When I was circularizing my orbit, I circularized it at the apoapsis, because it didn't make a whole lot of sense to decrease our orbit and then increase it again. However, that meant that the time to go around the moon put us outside of the launch window for the ideal transfer straight from the moon to Minimus. So we're having to do this thing where we bounce all over the place. It will take us about 41 days to get to Minimus using this path, which is technically okay. We do still have 78 days of life support left. It's a little bit closer shaving the margins than I would like, and it does mean we're not going to be exiting Kerbin's sphere of influence so that we can get a little bit more experience for our new guys, Toys and Grumph. But it doesn't take very much fuel, and I suppose technically we could launch a resupply mission out to Minimus. Possibly. We certainly have enough time to get something there. We'll just see what happens. We do decide to send a resupply mission up to Minimus with enough life support to give them another 80 days of, life support. We have a Jeb here in a newly designed sat lifter, SSTO. a delta wing design with twin tails. Yeah, twin tails, I guess that's how it's called. You notice that at the end there, the wings slope in to the surround the rocket engine, because I've put another set of wings just on the inside of the main delta wings to kind of close that gap. I think that decreases drag. I'm not really sure or anything, but it looks better at least. And those were the struts holding the cargo in place. Apparently they were sticking outside of the cargo bay enough that Deadly Reentry did not like them and decided to melt their faces off. It does fairly well. It does have the 4 engines instead of the typical 2 jet engines due to, well, just the weight of the cargo, I guess. And I think I have a little bit too much fuel in this. A little bit low on thrust to weight when we're climbing up with just the rocket engine. So we're down to 0.9 with both jets and rockets. And I've also forgotten to balance the intakes with the jets, and that caused a bit of wobbliness. But now that we've turned off the jets, switch SAS back to the stock SAS and everything, we seem to be holding on quite fine. Still trying to get a little bit more thrust at only 0.8, 0.9 thrust. Not quite happy with that. We aren't climbing as fast as we need to. You watch our delta V is dropping rapidly. We're down to 50, 40 something, and we still have a ways to go. Pumping fuel around to help keep the nose up, as it's kind of difficult to maintain that. And now we're down to 4 delta V. Though we are close to orbital velocity, very, very close to orbital velocity. We're just going to hold prograde so that decreases the amount of drag we have until we get outside of the atmosphere. And then we will release our cargo. Of course, we need to get the panels and antenna up, and then get that into orbit, which takes very, very little delta V. Just that little tiny tap. And now the B team is not the only people that are going to be taking the scenic route home, as Jeb does not have enough rocket fuel, oxidizer I guess, to power his rocket to put himself in orbit. He's going to have to go for a long atmospheric flight all the way across the globe. He does have enough liquid fuel for that, but it's a bit of a flight. 1,700 kilometers, and actually going further away because we're going in the wrong direction. But we can't exactly turn around. Well, I guess we could, it just not be a very good idea. 1,800 kilometers. And going. T50. Still not low enough in the atmosphere that we're... Okay, now it's starting to drop. So about 1870 kilometers. Long trip, Jeb. But he does make it. Jeb is doing this flight solo. Bob wanted to come along, but there was no science to be done, as this doesn't have any science payload. So Jeb had to go all by himself. But he didn't mind. It meant that he at least got some snacks for himself for a change. As for the cargo, it has to make it away to Minmus, which actually turns out we launched at a pretty perfect time for that, because it can get an intercept without having to do any kind of a plane change, as an intercept at its ascending node works perfectly. We also picked up, before we launched, a satellite contract for polar orbit around Minmus for about 100,000 Kerbal bucks, which is helping pay for this resupply mission. I think the total cost of this resupply mission is less than 5,000 once you take into account everything, like recovering 100% of the craft launched. Pretty good for 80 days of life support. Might want to think about sending something out to Duna to help with their life support if I can get that in there. We do a little fiddling to get the orbit perfectly lined up, and then it is on its way. It will have to meet up with the base race and the B team in the next episode. Probably after they land. But that is going to be it for this episode. Like if you like. Subscribe if you're not. Leave a comment if you have anything to say. I do read all the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.